Oh, look, it's showtime, everybody.
Woo!
This is Friday with Jarod on Bring It In, True Hoops quarantine Zoom show. And wow, it's also Free Agency Friday after Draft Wednesday, which means we have a lot of topics. So we've prepared. We have our most prepared show of all time, I think. It's a 5-page long document that we are looking at. Do you think we'll get through it all?
Probably not, but
No, probably not.
I didn't realize we had 5 pages.
5 pages, yeah. 5 pages. So we start usually with 9 by 90. Shall we?
Let's do it.
Okay.
So we have AOC, and she's got time on her hands to let people know what is going on in the world right now. So you look at her Twitter feed right now. Nikki Haley, GOP person's like, AOC, are you suggesting that you want to pay people to stay at home for money? You take them to funding the police? Or was that for student loan debts to pay off the Green New Deal, Medicare for all, blah, 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 right? All this idea of that Republicans love to say, where are you going to get the money from? AOC, great response. Nikki, I'm suggesting Republicans find the spine to stand up to their corporate donors and vote for the same measure they did in March, except without the Wall Street bailout this time. And I know you're confused about actual governance, but police budgets are municipal, not federal. And AOC is literally my favorite politician right now. And then this is her coming at Kelly Loeffler again. Hey, Kelly Loeffler, you're the one who gifted yourself a private jet on the public dime. You exploited corporate tax loopholes. She famously jettisoned public stock on insider information pre-coronavirus pandemic. So, GOPs love to use these talking points about how the left, they're like, they're socialists and they're communists and they're evil people. But in all of the retorts that are factual and you can look them up yourself, it seems like the GOP are the evil people, right? Doing the really horrible things, taking money from the public, right? From us, the majority, and enriching themselves and doing what's only beneficial for them. AOC is a treasure. And I think, we all need to, if you don't follow her on Twitter, man, do that. It's just at least going to enhance your day following her.
Talking truth to power.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. So if you guys saw the Giuliani press conference yesterday, which I happened to watch a few minutes of, and I was really amazed that afterwards, a Fox anchor during the day brought on some former Republican attorney general, who basically said everything you just saw was a lie. I'm paraphrasing, but basically he said that. And this woman who we're now watching, Sidney Powell, apparently Tucker Carlson called her out and basically said, please, you're accusing all these terrible, terrible things. Can you give us evidence of that? This is Tucker Carlson. That goofy motherfucker wanted evidence from Trump's lawyers regarding what they're accusing. She had nothing, and so we trashed them. So that's 2 different Fox people, both kind of choosing what's actual truth for the first time. And I'm just a reminder, as a Jewish person, we always talk about never forget because of the Holocaust, whatever. Like, we are never forgetting all the lies that these people perpetrated on us for a long flipping time. And to me, he'll always be that goofy motherfucker that has lied for 4 straight years and now all of a sudden wants us to bless him as being a regular journalist or to be seen as something actually a meaningful thinker, because maybe he wants to run as a politician one day. But we will not forget what the truth is, no matter how much he tries to suddenly act like he is a thoughtful, mindful person. We know the truth, Tucker. Shut the fuck up.
I'm so excited. This is the first time ever that you two just talk about politics all the time. And I'm like, let's talk about basketball. It's such a great role reversal. I'm totally enjoying it. All right, so Joe Lacob, here we go. $82.4 million at the drop of a hat as a 1-year stopgap measure to slightly upgrade the Golden State Warriors. Just 10 days ago, the owners were making the case to the players that they were in a financial wasteland and needed givebacks and concessions, blah, blah, blah. And I think it's true of a lot of owners. But I would just point out that blatantly, this is the market showing that to Joe Lacob, $82.4 million additional bill is absolutely worth it. And by the way, it's going to go up. Like Google it a little bit. They're going to spend about $200 million in luxury tax. So in a way, like perfect proof that the cries of poverty from the owners are totally whack. Also, I would point out, though, that $200 million from Joe Lacob is actually so much money. I think it really legit helps. Like, I think you're telling, because there's revenue sharing, right? So they do have, this is luxury tax. This is actually so clever if you think about it. The owners need protection from other owners outspending them. So they have a luxury tax. And the money goes to owners. like super clever. So this will actually go to Tillman Fertitta. Like this money is going straight to Tillman Fertitta to help out the bottom line of the Rockets. So it could actually be kind of a little salvation program for the less lucky owners in this hard time.
Always got to protect these billionaire idiot owners from themselves. It's really something. Shout out to broke boy Tillman Fertitta. So, David Aldridge and Kelly Iko of The Athletic wrote a really in-depth piece about what's going on with James Harden and the Rockets and what sort of all is falling apart and they're on the verge of divorce. If you subscribe to The Athletic, I encourage you to read that piece. Two things I found really interesting reading that article. One, everyone knows about Harden's two preferred destinations, Brooklyn and Philly. Quote, Harden loved the years he spent with Durant and the Thunder early in his career, constantly being called the glue that held the team together, according to a source close to Harden. During the Rockets' 2018 trip to the Bahamas prior to training camp, Harden would watch hours of old Thunder games in his room. The presence of D'Antoni on the Nets staff as Steve Nash's top assistant, along with capabilities of Kyrie Irving to take some of the ball handling and scoring load of Harden, would be an added benefit. I thought that was so interesting, like a guy in the midst of his MVP run is being nostalgic and looking back on his Thunder days. And I'm wondering, right, like we always talk about these guys in sports and we look at championships and you're trying to win and do all these things, like looking back when things were simpler, right? When I was in my early 20s, it was just me, KD, and Russ. We were the backpack wearing kids and life seemed great. And we were going to go to multiple championships and just never happened. And it's just, it talks to the idea that, and Coach and I talked about this, that window in the NBA of winning titles and all that is tiny and finite. And when it slams shut, might be it forever.
Yeah, no joke. So ESPN had a nice story about the whole LaVar Ball situation with the draft. And there were so many different paragraphs that jumped at me, but here's one. He's describing the family's waiting to be interviewed. And so the author writes, they wait and wait. A technical glitch causes the interview to be ditched, and nobody, especially not Lonzo or LiAngelo, seems bothered. LaVar, who's the dad, quiet no longer, is accepting congratulations and telling the room, quote, tell MJ, here we come. Tell MJ, we're coming. LaVar punctuates his proclamations by raising both arms in the air. Michael Jordan, the man LaVar famously claimed he could beat in a one-on-one, is the owner of the Hornets and now his son's boss. LaVar tells me the world might finally get to see that one-on-one, but first he has to discuss the business side with Jordan. Pay-per-view, guaranteed money, that kind of thing. He laughs and says, quote, hey, if people wanted to pay to see 50-year-old Mike Tyson fight, why not? He likes the idea of Jordan guiding his son. Quote, greatness recognizes greatness. He says, I always told my boys, someone has to be better than the best. Why not you? Oh, boy. Charlotte made this choice. It is, this is what they wanted, right? They could have taken some really good players. They instead chose a guy, the first two teams didn't, that is bringing a circus and a magic show. Look over here. It's all about over here. This is not a franchise prepared for what's coming, in my opinion.
A lot of grieving from Bucks fans right now over this weird situation. Bogdan Bogdanovic was a wonderful player, was on the way from the Kings, reportedly on the way to the Kings, from the Kings to the Bucks. Here's Mark Stein. If you read these tweets, it kind of explains that that's definitely not happening. Now, and then Judy, if you could go to the next tweet, No Tech Ben one. Maybe it's up there. Don't worry. So basically, most famous Bucks fan is Ben Thompson of Trickery, and he's basically, there we go. The dreams of the Bucks title were ended by waking up to this notification of Ersan Ilyasova. He was the player that was going to go to Sacramento. It's all a big confusing thing. But here's the main point. John Hollinger is like, look, the Bucks are fine. They have 5 unrestricted free agents: Sterling Brown, Pat Connaughton, Kyle Korver, Robin Lopez, Wes Matthews. None are likely to get overwhelming offers in the opening hours of free agency, which starts tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern. Milwaukee could sign and trade any of them for a salary in the $5 million range on a required 3-year deal that only needs to be guaranteed for the first season. The other point I'll bring up is it so bad if the trade falls through? The hard cap is going to be a real problem for Milwaukee in a sign and trade, and the Bucks might be better off using their full mid-level on a sniper like Langston Galloway or Justin Holiday, retaining DiVincenzo's dynamism off the bench, having more flexibility to add pieces in season. If you factor in the ability to add more pieces to the baseline, Milwaukee could be better off operating its offseason this way. So there you go, Bucks fans.
I didn't move Milwaukee in our top 5 panel. They're fine. DiVincenzo's good.
So the Warriors, back to Joe Lacob and what's going on there. So Tim Kawakami, the editor-in-chief of the Athletic San Francisco, had Lacob on his podcast, and he said he gathered the Warriors front office together after the Clay news, and this is what Lacob told them. We're not tanking. If anyone's even thinking that, get it off your mind. Forget it. Give me options. What can we do to make this team as good as we can make it? And you know what this is all about. This is the capitalist machine. It's about that money, my friends. He just built a brand new, whatever it was, multi-billion-dollar state arena on this awesome piece of property in San Francisco. And it's been sitting vacant for the last 9-10 months. And I need to fill that thing up, and I need people in there. I got to make some money back on this investment. So we can't put out a crap product on the floor because I need fans to show up and watch this team play basketball. So as Henry pointed out, we're going deep into the luxury tax. He's going to have, what did he say? $30 million for testing to get 50% of the arena at capacity. And that's not just for basketball games. He wants to be like, look, we can do this for concerts, the Monster Truck Rally, all those things that fill up arenas all over America beyond basketball. Folks, the capitalist machines, the greatest band of all time. The money train must continue. And that is what Joe Lacob is concerned about right now. And that is his only focus.
I think they got shut down though, Jarod. I think the local government said they can't have their 50% capacity.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, he's got problems now.
That's democracy. That's democracy. Politics fighting money. So we know, and as NBA fans, that you just don't see rookies changing win totals. Typically, they're here for long term. There's Tyler Hero, and he is alone in pretty much NBA history, going back to Magic Johnson, Larry Bird. So that's what, 40 years. But the Wizards at number 9 changed their immediate and midterm future by getting lucky enough that the other 8 teams didn't draft Denny Avdia, who was number 2 on my board, who has been, we're showing a highlight on YouTube now of just fighting on defense and getting people's faces, moving his feet, staying engaged because he had no choice. He played for one of the best teams outside of America in the world, and they held him accountable for everything. He played with, there's NBA players all over the court when you watch his team play and their opponents play, especially in the EuroLeague. And so the Wizards, I thought, probably should have traded Bradley Beal, and even could have traded him even now, because people talk about their timelines of matching up the players, right? Their best players, Bradley Beal, John Wall, don't match up with all the young guys they have, who I'm not even sure all that good to begin with. But Avdia changes that. He immediately becomes an elite, not elite level, a starting level player on day one with elite level upside, and gives them a reason to keep Beal and Wall around. They're much more interesting because of that one pick.
Okay, this is like my favorite thing in a long time. So I've been doing this little game of like when Joe Biden's president and Donald Trump's gone to Mar-a-Lago and then to whatever he faces after that, we're going to start getting movies. There'll be really good movies of like what's really happening behind the scenes. And some of them will be fiction. How do you want that movie to end? And this is my answer. This is exactly my answer. When the authorities went to arrest Matthew Piercy on Monday for what they said was his role in running a $35 million Ponzi scheme, he took off in his truck and led them to Shasta Lake, the largest man-made reservoir in California. Tracked by air and trailed by FBI agents and members of the California Highway Patrol, Mr. Piercy, 44 of Palo Cedro, California, was seen removing something from his truck and entering the frigid water with it in his street clothes. The authority said, after about 25 minutes in the lake, part of which he spent submerged, a very cold and wet Mr. Piercy emerged and was arrested, the Justice Department said. The agents allowed him to change into dry clothes that they'd obtained from his wife before escorting him to the nearest FBI field office. In Sacramento, the department said, Mr. Piercy's red Yamaha 350 Li, an underwater ski scooter, was taken as evidence. The authority said the commercially available battery-powered scooter has an enclosed propeller that can pull a diver underwater at just under 4 miles an hour, much faster than humans can move with fins. And the whole thing just reminds me of, I don't know if you've seen the Mr. Bean part where he steals a scooter, but it's a very slow scooter. And then like the guy steals it from just like walks and overtakes him and was like, hey, give me back my scooter. That's how my Trump story is going to end.
except for one thing. There is no way anyone's wife is giving him dry clothes.
Yeah.
Right.
Melania, like, okay, using that scooter means lying still like this, and I don't think Trump's athletic enough to pull it off.
It reminds me, there's a great scene in Seinfeld where George is trying to get away from a bunch of people, and he's riding the scooter for people that are handicapped. And they're all going like 1.5 miles an hour. It's fantastic. It's a great so-called chase scene. Very similar.
Yeah.
I like it. Henry. I like how you're thinking, buddy.
No, it's from you.
So.
That's the whole like picture of the happy ending, right? That's my happy ending. It's just like some cold lake.
I can't wait to tell my wife that. That is so good. Yeah. All right, here we go.
Okay. All right. Free agency. The Warriors are gonna do something crazy, maybe. John Hollinger. Let's kick off the conversation here. If the Warriors are gonna make a crazy decision, John Hollinger is recommending James Weissman, the top 3 protected Minnesota pick in next year's draft. The Warriors own first-round picks in 2021 and 2027 for James Harden or Bradley Beal. What? What do you guys think?
That makes sense, right? Because here's the thing. You have Steph Curry at 32 years of age, right? Whatever that is, this is the back end of his prime, right? So you want to be able to maximize that as much as you can. You no longer have Klay Thompson, right? And even when he does come back in the 2022, 2023 season, he's coming back off of ACL and Achilles. Like, who knows what that's going to look like. Draymond is 30 years old, and he's an old 30, right? With the kind of game that he has. If you are the Warriors, this makes all the sense in the world. If your point is we have to win a title in the next couple of years, right? Like, because that's the choice I think that you either have. You're either going all in, we're going to win this title in the next couple of years, or we're tearing this sucker down to the studs and we got to, bring back in draft capital, all that, and build ourselves back up, which Lacob said he's already not doing. He doesn't want to hear about tanking or nope, we're trying to win. So, which means luxury tax for the next 2 or 3 years, right? Because that's what you do when you were trying to do that. It makes sense, but that's still no guarantee you're going to win a title, right? I mean, sure, you're better and your odds are there, but it's a risky gamble.
David, I know you got a lot of thoughts here. Let her rip, buddy.
What Jarod's saying is right, of course. Henry and I talked this morning, Jarod, about when do you have to start thinking about trading Curry, right? It seems like the owner already answered that. Okay, and to be clear, Steph Curry's earned the right to be asked. Mm-hmm. What do you want us to do? Where do you want to go? We'd love to have you here forever. He may say, you know what? I was great. I loved it here when we sucked. I loved it when we got pretty good. I loved it when we were the best. And I'm not leaving us now. He's allowed to say that. Absolutely. And I would love him if he did that, because I do think they can be good. To be great is different. Unless, and Henry mentioned this morning about trading Draymond, who's got a very, very bad contract for a guy that if he can't shoot the three is rapidly diminishing as a valuable player. But there are teams that might take him. So I played with the idea of Charlotte, just because they're poorly run, who would like the idea, maybe, I'm just making this up, but I've made stuff up before that turned out to happen, so I'm going to make this up too. They might think, man, Draymond might be the guy that could hold LaMelo accountable by punching him right in the freaking jaw when he takes some of those shots. And Golden State might think, well, if you want Draymond, you got to give us, Devontae Graham, and of course, Batum's got to be in the deal. Well, that's interesting. Devontae Graham is really freaking good, really, really good, right? And then I thought, Atlanta, who is also thinking about, the veteran leader and what can you get for that? And so now you start having those kinds of conversations about teams who value Draymond more than they should. And sadly, it means Golden State won't be the Golden State we've known. It'll just be Steph, because as you said, Jarod, Klay's out. And to assume he's ever going to come back is an unfair assumption. Okay, 2 years gone. Sorry, it may work out. Who would be rooting for him, right? But Weissman's going to be legit fast. It may not be this year. That's rare. He'll be able to dunk the ball. I doubt he'll be a rim protector because he'll keep fouling. He's played 3 college games. It's going to take a while. But Steph, John Hollinger first talked to us, Henry, years ago about the unathletic guy ages out the fastest. It doesn't matter what his skills are. Shane Battier was one of many examples, right? Where they just can't move at all. It doesn't matter how they shoot. Steph is not that. He's not the world's fastest athlete as we measure athletes, but he's a hell of an athlete. And we know his skill game and his passing game. He doesn't play like Kyle Lowry. He's as smart as Kyle Lowry. The plus minus shows that. So he's got some years left in him, I think, where they might be able to trade Draymond, not Wiggins. Oubre, they have his bird rights. But if you can trade Draymond, you might be able to get back in the running. And then you got Weissman coming. But I'll throw this out too. As I said to both you guys before we started, what if they just clean house with everything but Weissman and Curry to try to create a place for Giannis to come? Because if you're Giannis, that's a hell of a thing to consider, to play with a five that's got your back, that can stretch the floor. Remember, you think about the rubber band, you got to hold it in place to stretch it. Weissman holds it in place when Curry stretches it, because at the 7'6" wingspan at the rim and 7'1" player with great athleticism, that's a hell of a place for Giannis to go. Hell of a place. So they've got some things to consider over the course of the season, right? Not just right now.
I'm like one other thing I'd say is like the point of tanking is to get a player like James Weissman and whoever they're going to get with Minnesota's pick in next year's draft.
Next year, yeah.
I don't know who to believe about next year's draft.
It's supposed to be really good. I've looked into it too. Yeah.
But they're 10 players better than any player in this year's draft. Maybe that's crazy talk. But
that is crazy talk.
So, but there's every chance that like the quality of players that the Warriors already have on a conveyor belt to them is equivalent to the entire hall of the process in Philadelphia, right? Like, so the notion that you need to lose to get there is ridiculous. Like, they already got these prospects, right? They've already got those assets. So to me, I'm like, okay, then the point of tanking is to get 2 or 3 really good long haul players done, right?
Right.
In addition, they have some quality young players, Everest and Eric Pascal. They have Steph Curry. To me, like the whole game is not what Steph Curry feels like he wants today, but what the league, including Giannis and Steph, will feel like next summer, and then at next trade deadline, and then when Steph's a free agent in 2 years. To me, like if you hit those marks, you're good, right? Like you're fine. You're a place stars want to play. You're gonna be fine. So to me, this is your chance right now. This is why I thought like Draymond has to go, is because you need to today's not the day you have to do the moves to make everybody happy. Today's the day you have to get the players who will make them happy in a year, right? James Weissman totally fits the bill. Can make Kelly Oubre great, super expensive, but I'm gonna read this little thing. Bradley Beal, for the record, Harden and Beal are old for shooting guards, and that affects you. There's this cliff effect, right? Like they're both really good right now, but it's gonna be probably before Steph is a free agent that they're falling off the cliff. Like I'm out. And I would particularly point out, Bradley Beal was the worst defender's position in the league according to Defensive Real Plus Minus. I'm not telling you that's a good projection, a different team, different system, but 138th out of 138. Wow, like that's a bummer. Look who's down here.
But I think that's instructive. I'm glad you brought it up, but I think that's instructive in this way. As I've said many times, it starts with having defense always starts with disposition. And when you're surrounded by young trash and medium age trash and old trash, you're not going to spend 1 second thinking about defense. You're not, anything you said isn't wrong, Henry.
Right.
Especially the position he plays. But I think actually he's a plus defender, but not when the rest of his team sucks. But you're right. When you think about when you got to look at Golden State going forward, I don't think there's any interest at all in getting Beal. Graham is much more interesting to me. Still wildly athletic. Yeah. And another primary ball handlers scorer who I think is aging up really, really well. And there's no way that dude, I just can't imagine he wants to be in Charlotte with what's kind of happened. Even LaMelo's good.
The other thing is like
for Graham.
If you ask players who they want to play with, they will always say someone who's good right now or famous or like at their level, right?
Yep.
But then they leave those teams.
Yeah.
Right. Because this is a way to get playing with old players. Right. So we did this story about LeBron and how he left the Cavs the first time. Dan Rosenbaum is a brilliant man and worked in that front office. He had this line where he's like, Rosenbaum makes it clear that LeBron wasn't directing the front office, but the team put extraordinary effort into guessing what he'd like. Over time, that meant trading away young players and draft picks. And his quote, to me, that was always kind of the wrong approach, Rosenbaum says. Once those years are over, those years are over. You sacrifice by trading away draft picks. Then you don't have young guys he can see himself grow old with. Like, to me, this is exactly the Warriors' choice today. Is exactly this. Is like, will you have the young players that Steph can see himself grow old with?
No doubt. Here's something also interesting too, Henry. I was thinking about this as you were talking about what the Warriors are now. So, narrative matters so much, right? And story and all that. And I was thinking back to our top fives, and you had Steph in your top five. This is a prime way for like that top five narrative to take hold, right? Everyone thinks this team, sans Steph, is not very good, right? Well, if he were to take this crew, a la what LeBron has done with like not really good teams, and drag them to a conference finals or whatever, then it's like, oh, Steph actually can be the guy that carries mediocre talent like LeBron James does, right? Because that's the one knock that's left on him, right? Is that, yeah, he can win with Kevin Durant, but he can't win with like marginal talent. Well, if he does,
Yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree. And look, and they're not gonna be terrible, right? Like there's such a rich team that even after a Klay Thompson injury, they still have several good players. I'm underwhelmed with like Eric Paschall being the entire haul from last year's experiment in young players, right? It's just not enough. I don't know if you guys read Nate Duncan on like Marquise Chris, and he's like, not an NBA player. like,
he did okay for them.
Yeah.
But to your point, and Henry wrote about this, and I referenced it in an article about the draft yesterday. Curry is just this enormous talent, and we act as if Draymond Green was going to be this incredible player no matter what, which he has been. He was on the trade blocks after his second year in the league as a second round pick, and Steve Kerr deserves huge credit too. But come on now, right? Steph Curry won the championship and then lost in Game 7 after winning 72 regular season games with Klay for sure, and Harrison Barnes and Andrew Bogut, right? And Draymond, who was shooting a little bit better than he has more recently, but probably was drinking a lot and partying and angry. And Curry won spectacularly over these 2 years. So I do think that they're interesting this year. The league is loaded. Like, they're not alone. There's a few teams in LA alone that are really, really good, if not even great.
It suddenly occurs to me, if they're good, if they're like, top 4 in the West by any measure, playoffs or regular season, everyone's going to say, of course, they have Steph Curry, the MVP, Andrew Wiggins, number 1 overall pick, and James Wiseman, who should have been the number 1 overall pick, right? If they're good, those guys will all be playing well. Like, it'll be.
I really hope they go after. I wrote this in our document. There's a player that I fell in love with. I watched him. I don't really care for the Gators anymore for a long time. I don't care about college sports until now with my son. But this kid, they used to call him the Cheese. My son called him Cheese Man. Chris Chiozza played for Brooklyn, little guy.
Yep.
I said, this guy's an NBA player. And all my friends who really watch the Gators, I'm like, you're out of your mind. He's like 4'11". And I said, I'm just telling you, he's the fastest dude out there every game. And he uses his speed. Mm-hmm. Like, he's not just occasionally fast. He's always flying around. If you ever learn to shoot, he's going to stick. And he played good for Brooklyn last year. And he's still the fastest guy in the league. He's tough as nails. I love him as inexpensive Bobby Jackson type for Golden State. He's going to make some money somewhere, but let him be on a team that's got Kelly Oubre, very athletic, Andrew Wiggins, very athletic, James Wiseman, very athletic, right? He won't start. Pascal's not quite as athletic. He's a big, strong guy. He's a good athlete, but those 3 other guys are elite athletes. With Curry as the shooter, I think and then because they need energy off the bench. That's why they didn't have that at all last year. And he's not expensive. Like, there's ways to, because of Curry and the talent they have, there's ways to upgrade that isn't a lot of money. There's of course guys you can get that are a little more expensive, but they'll probably still be minimum guys or just over it.
Cheese man.
Cheese man. Dios is the cheese man.
Yeah. No, he was. I watched him close last year covering Brooklyn. Like, he's a dynamo.
I loved him. I loved him when he was in. I loved him, and I just like guys that are the pace that they play at. The Celtics drafted a kid who I've actually talked to a lot. I've never coached him because he lives in Israel, but Yam Madar is very much like that. Super, super fast. And when Avdia was winning back-to-back European under-20 championships as a teenager for Israel, Yam Madar was their point guard. And he's playing. He doesn't play in the EuroLeague. He plays in the Israeli league, but like, he's good. I think he'll stay overseas for at least a year. The Celtics had 3 first-round picks alone. And so I don't think he'll come over. But I like guys that second unit. Sometimes those units need just to play super fast to get open shots. If there's no one guy that can kind of draw attention and play 4-on-3, knock the first domino down, the domino's got to be knocked down with just speed. And so I'd like to see Golden State do that.
Okay, everybody watch David's face. I think I know what's going to happen here, but let's see. I think the Warriors think Nico Manion's going to be that guy.
He can't shoot. Yeah, but and definitely not this year. He's a rookie, 1 year pro. I watched Nico Manion play once early in his freshman year. He played at Arizona, and I thought, he's interesting with speed and passing. My son said he was his All-American. I don't know about high school, but he just can't shoot at all. You're right, Henry. It just won't be like 2023 where he might make a big difference for a team that's probably looking to be better. I think he's a G League guy all year. Sign the cheese man and let him amp up that arena, and then sign up for a 2 or 3 deal, and then maybe Nico can shoot after that. Cheese
Henry, the two new unofficial players of this podcast are the cheese man and lug nuts.
Oh, lug nuts.
Lug nuts.
Curry with cheese.
Lug nuts with cheese.
I don't know if that's good or not, but yeah.
I like it. All right, who else we have? We've got
actually, really, your Devontae Graham thing, by the way, though, like Devontae Graham has to go somewhere, right? Like he can't be LaMelo Ball's sidekick, right? This is all wrong.
No,
not good for him, and it is in a contract year. And then just for fun, Jarod, I played around with Steph Curry as to be traded. Like if the Warriors, again, I didn't realize the owner had said we're definitely not doing this, but if Curry said, guys, I want out, we're done. Like nothing against Clay. By the way, they can trade Clay tomorrow if they want to. Okay, it'd be weird, but he wouldn't be the first guy to be traded injured, and teams probably would take him. But I did a trade with the Heat. I thought Curry would fit very good there, and they would have to trade Hero, and probably Duncan Robinson, not definitely, but because you got to do to make the deal work. There's more to it than what I just did on this trade machine, but. And I've got Iguodala going back to Golden State and starting his coaching career. I'm just playing around. I have no idea. But you get Hero, Nunn, and Robinson to put with Weissman. You try to get Wiggins to play well enough to trade him, right? Oubre has got 1 year and he's done anyway. And now you got some players to put around Weissman. They're not going to do it, though. And that's fine. I'm glad they're going to try to win with Steph.
And then in Miami, Jimmy, Steph, and Bam. Woo, boy, that is fun.
I thought so. Yeah, I mean,
not happening.
You got to get rid of, but not because of Miami, Henry. It's because of Golden State.
Yeah,
but I agree. I would have Bam and Jimmy and Steph, and you're competing right now to win it for sure. They made the finals last year. Steph's way better than Dragic didn't even start. He didn't even play much last year because of the injury in the finals. Okay,
let's see how we're doing on time here. Okay, big topic 2. It could take forever. Agency starts tonight. I love this Daryl Morey quote. He just was on Twitter this morning saying, "It's the busiest multiple weeks in my life. A big part of my job and Elton's job comes down to nights like tonight. It's like a 4-day window where our entire hopeful worth of the franchise will happen. We're ready for free agency. We've got our plan ready to execute there, and there won't be much sleep." That's what's going on right now. The Knicks have a reported $40 million in cap space. Does anybody feel like they have a good handle on what's going to happen there?
Well, I have an idea of what might be nice. They need a point guard, clearly. And it might be nice to have a wing scorer. I also love how we say things like that. Oh, wing, like these things grow on trees. Like, just grab a wing scorer from somewhere. Like, no, that's not how this goes. But with $40 million, could you get Fred VanVleet and Bogdan Bogdanović? Because it is clear Bogdan's jumping into restricted free agency, and the Kings are not going to match whatever anybody puts out there, clearly. Can you get them both for $20 million each? I think, maybe.
What do you think, David?
It's right around that number. Yeah, I mean, it's close. I mean, the Knicks are such a question mark. Did I put in the video of
signing off?
Randy. All right, Randy.
Did I put Judy I may not put the link of Stephen A. Smith going off on the Obi Toppin Maybe I put it in there, but Obi Toppin has got some talent, and they're loaded with forwards. I don't necessarily think Stephen A. Smith knows that much about projecting players. It was just a funny reaction. I don't know if the Knicks know what they're doing or not yet. It's unfair to judge these guys in power right now. The Toppin pick wasn't terrible at all. I would have taken Avdia. I guarantee you the Wizards are thrilled they didn't. But does Fred VanVleet want to go to that circus, right? After what he's gone through and competing for championships in multiple years, Bogdanovich is different. It's just like going to the Knicks are the kings of the East. I mean, I'm sorry. They just have a better history. That's all. They're the kings of the East until proven otherwise, right? So Bogdanovich won't care about that if they're willing to pay him. He's good. He's a talented player.
That would be, I mean, if that's your squad, if you do end up getting VanVleet and Bogdanovich with Obi and Mitchell Robinson and RJ and Kevin, I mean, you're competing for a playoff spot, right? You're in that 8-7, and with Thibodeau, we have our issues with Tibbs for sure. But they're going to certainly play some kind of cohesive team basketball, and at a bare minimum, they will compete until the clock goes 0-0. And sometimes in the regular season, just competing is enough.
I guess the problem is they would have spent quite a lot of money and not have a star.
True. Correct.
Right?
Correct.
Am I right about that? I don't.
Because I don't know RJ could project to maybe one day, but we're a long way from knowing that. And, Fred VanVleet, very good, not a star, right? Like if looking back at Seth Partnow's tier rankings, right? Mm-hmm. And if Seth does that every 5 years, it'll change. But literally your tier 1A, like your creme de la creme, is 6 to 7 guys every year, right? The guys who drop them into any situation, we're a contender because we have that guy. There's only so many of them that exist.
Look, here's the insanity of the NBA for Knicks fans is, let's say they get Fred VanVleet and not Bogdanovich. Now they're down 5-6 wins. Now they're in the lottery again. And they have a lot more cap room to get somebody next year. They're better in both ways long-term by being crappier now. It's so weird that we put this pressure on them, right? It almost doesn't make sense to sign. I mean, they need to get up to the floor and blah, blah, blah. But to me, it's you might just want to get
one of them.
Someone who keeps you in the lottery, basically might be what you want here.
Think about, all right, Jarod, let's go through the East real fast. Ready? Tell me which of these teams are going to not finish above the Knicks, even if they add Bojan and Fred. Ready? The Bucks, the Raptors, the Celtics, the Pacers, the Heat, the Sixers, the Nets. That's 7.
None of them. Yep.
Okay.
So now we got.
Definitely think.
So now we got Orlando and Charlotte and Washington, Chicago, and my sleeper, the Hawks, all potentially fighting for one spot because of opposite injury.
Yes, that's you're competing with that crew. And by the way, Orlando has already made the playoffs the last 3 years in a row, right? So they're good enough, right? It's tough. Henry, you might be right. Tank again, so we get in that lottery.
I think, and trade Knox and maybe get a second round for him, but
trade Knox, Randall.
Yeah. It's just and I'm not a fan of RJ. Sorry, I never have been. I met him. I think he's a terrific guy. I actually met him I didn't meet him. I saw him in a coffee shop in New York City as my kids were just wandering around Times Square. And my wife was seeing a show with my daughter, actually. And he was in there, and he's a perfectly pleasant, humble man. I really was impressed with him. It was right after the draft. But I don't know if he can really play any good in the NBA. It's not worth quitting on him for sure. For sure. It's not worth quitting on him. He seems like a terrific guy. But, yeah, I think Henry's right. I think that they're another year away, and they should just continue to acquire guys that they can pick later on.
Bilal brings up an interesting point. He's like, bold prediction, Toronto just misses the playoffs. Now, here's the thing. If VanVleet leaves, Gasol's already gone. If Ibaka also goes, is a team with just Pascal, Siakam, Chris Boucher,
Kyle Lowry.
Kyle Lowry, is that playoffs?
I'm sorry, did you say Kyle Lowry?
Yeah. And they've got Anunoby.
It's true, they have OG. Yeah.
They've got a machine. They may not be top 4 if they lose Fred. And Are they going to lose him? I don't know about speculation with that.
We don't know.
There's plenty of reports that he will just return to Toronto, and that's that.
That he does want to return?
Yeah, I mean, nobody knows, but like,
yeah, right, but it's possible. That's what I thought.
No drama.
It's possible. Yeah, and they got Terrence Davis. I mean, the Raptors they're good. Like they're going to be just fine. The Nets, to me, of all those teams I just read off, well, the Pacers, we're a little concerned about them. But Oladipo, yeah, that's a fair. But they went 40. They won 17 above 500 last year. The Nets are the one team I don't know about. But you would think. I know they think they win a championship. I don't think that. It could really implode, right? It could implode.
Here's the thing with the Nets, right? I think everybody's of the mindset of they're either going to be a disaster and implode, or they're going to win a ton of games, right? Like, I mean, no one sees an in between. Like,
I'll vote for in between. I bet they're going to win out of 75 games. They're going to win like 39, and everyone's going to be disappointed. We're like, how did this ever go wrong? It's like, well, because it always does when you assemble teams this way.
if they don't fiddle with the team too much, they'll be better off. They have a lot of talent on that team, and they may lose Joe Harris.
Although Sean Marks said number one priority is signing Joe Harris. I was just on the conference call with him. Number one.
Yeah, of course. He's the only guy they could possibly have that might score 12 points on 3 shots. Because that's about all he might get. Right?
No, that is all he will get.
Yeah, you better get the guys that could be super productive with very, very few touches. Because otherwise, it's going to be wild. And they got some talent to move.
They do.
If they try to trade LeVert or whatever.
So it was interesting, right? Because that's the dilemma. And Sean admitted this. When you have guys like KD and Kyrie in your window's 2 years max, do you go all in, mortgage everything away, your young guys, your expirings, to get another piece that is ready to win now? But then in 3 years, we got to start from scratch again with nothing because we have no draft capital, no young talent, and we're terrible again. And he, Sean was adamant. He said, look, we always look to upgrade and make our team better, but I don't want to be in a spot 3 years from now where we're literally have to start from ground zero again. So.
I mean, okay, but you already kind of screwed that whole thing up, didn't you? I do think, that there's this anxiety attack of every team, which is you want to be a team that superstars want to flock together on. And it's new and they're bad at it. And it means a lot of like checking in with your stars about team construction. And I don't think it's just like we were saying earlier about how the Cavaliers were trying to guess what LeBron wanted and it cost them LeBron. Like, I think that you need to deliver unbelievable teammates, which has always been a long-term play. You have to keep thinking long-term. I don't know if a lot of teams will be able to deliver in that way. I don't know if they're like competent enough, but I think that's still going to be how you win.
No, and I think you're right, Henry. Like, the thing is, you're caught between a rock and a hard place, right? Yeah. With one of those 6 or 7 dudes, you have to ask their permission, quote unquote, to do things, right? Because they're the best players. But they also make horrendous general managers because they only know, I know this guy's good right now. I don't got time to worry about 3 years from now, this guy developing and being, no, we're going to win today, right? So, and as a GM, you have to have one eye on now and one eye on 4 years down the line. And that's, that's why they pay you millions of dollars. So
it's like literally construction. It's literally like you got to go get the permits and then you got to get the inspections and you got to like pour the concrete and all this. Like, if you ask people which house they want to live in, they never pick the one that isn't built yet. Right. But they need that. Like, sometimes you're going to need that. Anyway.
That's a good segue to topic 3.
I think we sort of did that, right? We sort of.
Perfect segue,
okay.
Yes.
Jarod, you want to drive here?
Oh, so topic 3, I think it's so interesting and it's something we should talk about, this idea of draft picks and fans identifying more with GMs than they do with players. Like, growing up, right, like, at least for me, and I'm sure for you guys, like, it was like, I didn't think about GMs when I was a kid. I thought about Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson and Dwight Gooden and like, right, I wanted to be those guys because they're the ones that got all the glory and adulation and they were playing the sport because that's what you did when you were a kid, you played the sport. But now more and more, so many people see it as identifying with the GM. And Bomani Jones is someone who always talks about this. Someone tweeted, please, I cannot handle another round of everyone geeking out over GM hoarding draft picks. Shut up about Presti. I'm begging you. And Bomani tweeted and said, this generation of dorks wants to be like the GM. It's ... right? And that's one of Bo's big soapboxes, right? Is this idea of you dorks, all you do is care about draft picks. And part of that is fantasy and all the different things. But ultimately, right, draft picks are just what they are. They're draft picks. Like, who the hell knows what they're going to be? Oklahoma City, for all of their Presti, and I like him as a GM, but we'll kill him for the Harden deal forever. Their number one success is when they had Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Russell Westbrook. When they lost Harden, they still went to conference finals, and they were pretty good. Of these 7...
No, they were really good. They won 60 games.
Yeah. Of those 17 draft picks, none of those picks may ever be Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Russell Westbrook, right? I would probably say it's highly unlikely that one of those 17s turns out to be any one of them, right? Now, maybe they get one who approaches that, and then they can be smart and use cap room and do whatever. But ultimately, it's still about talent, right? And getting lucky and getting a generational dude. And I just don't know that, like, you know, again, 17 picks is great, but it could be something, it could be nothing.
They won't be drafted all 17. Like, they're going to be...
You're going to trade a bond.
Yeah.
Because ultimately what he's going to do is, right, eventually trade, because Oklahoma City is not a free agency destination, right? We know that. But if I can trade a bunch of these picks and get one of those awesome guys who's already locked in their contract for another 3 years, that could be a good thing for me, like he did with Paul George, sort of, and then move it again. And, you know, it's just interesting to me, though, that we focus a lot of fan bases focus so much on picks and the GM. And it's like, I get it, but at the end of the day, you need dudes on the floor who can put the ball in the bucket and defend. That's how you win games.
This is like I love Bomani, and he's like his degree, I think, is in like a master's in economics.
Yeah.
Like, when you talk to Bomani, he's got one of these like a, you know, one of these matrix type brains, and I love, like, he just sort of lands on these things, and a little bit like talking to Ethan, where I'm just like, where's this ride going? Like,
they're very similar in that way.
And I believe in the ride. Like, I respect where Bomani's taking it. I want to learn what Bomani's saying, right? On this particular one, though, I feel like he's policing other people's tastes. I'm like,
yes.
And by the way, I'm here to tell you from ESPN.com traffic data. He's policing a tiny sliver of Twitter's tastes. Like, they're active in Bomani's Twitter world, but it's not really fans. He's not describing fans at all. These super dorky stories don't get readers, right? Like it's not a thing he has to worry about. What is happening, though, is I do think there's like a somewhere, and I was, when you were saying this, I was trying to remember where I read this and what it said. It's something like 60% of what people talk about, maybe someone else had read this, is like other people being right or wrong. Like, that's just what we do. This goes back to the Stone Age, right? Where it's like, you know, like, oh, did they pick the right cave to live in, right? Like, this is what we do. Like, so if you're looking at so this is decision making. Talking about decision making is a natural human hobby. So I can't decide to get Michael Jordan in his prime on my team. Like, like, I don't get, that's not a decision humans get to make. Like, either you do or you don't. But what you can decide is all the galaxy brain stuff that people find as a hobby is like, you can Sam Presti it up. Like, those are the choices that a team can actually make. And like, that's as much as you can influence if you win or lose. So like, to me, like, talking about the choices you can make is a little bit like talking about saving for retirement or like trying to avoid COVID. Like, these are we spend all day obsessing over these choices other people make. And so to me, in basketball, it is the Sam Presti games. That's what you can talk about. Like you can't decide to have James Harden on your team. Like, not really. You can decide to get the pick that might be James Harden. So that's what we talk about, you know? Well,
it's interesting to your point, Henry, really quick, Coach. It also delves into the larger thing about the NBA, right? Adam and the people at the league, even though they won't admit it, love the Twitter conversation about who's going here. But to your point, that's just a small segment of Twitter, right? Like, the casual fan who the NBA says they care doesn't give a shit about any of this. And
they've never heard the word Sam Presti. Like, the vast majority of fans literally don't know who Sam Presti is. Like, the audience the NBA needs is just like, it's you know, highlights on cell phones in China. It has nothing to do with this shit. Like, this is just a little, like, just don't spend any time on it. Spend no time at all. Like, not a concern, not a media concern. It's a, you know, it's a constructing your team concern or whatever, but it's not a media concern. Like, it's just moving on, you know?
But I'll just throw this in there. 7-8 years ago, when my son was like in 7th grade, he had a teammate on his AAU team whose dad is a well-known attorney here who bought George Steinbrenner's mansion when George died because he had to live in Tampa. So he bought it from his widow. And I never saw, my wife used to drive my son over there a lot. You can imagine the size of this thing. So now there's 10 boys, 8 boys, whatever, having sleepover one night. We had practice the next day, and they were really lethargic. We were a highly ranked team, and we sucked in practice. And I pulled one of the guys over, and I said, like, what the hell's going on? Why are we so out of it? And they said, Coach Thorpe, one guy told me, we were up all night playing 2K. And I said, oh, how did it go? Whatever. And he started describing the transactions of the 2K. He's like, it was unfair. He's like, your son has you. So we kept trading for now, but he kept acquiring picks, and then he would destroy us for like 5 straight seasons. I'm like, well, how did he play the game? He's like, oh, we didn't play any games. I didn't know any of this and still don't really understand it. But apparently you can let the seasons just do the transactions.
Yeah.
And it's unbelievable. And these guys played all night, and they played like multiple times because they were sick of Max winning, because he's used to thinking those kinds of things because, his dad was me. And I love it. And by the way, my son might have been the dumbest kid on the team. There's some really smart kids on this team. I love that kind of thinking. And the data scientists who I have a nephew who's brilliant math. And he says, I don't care if it's sports or virus issues or economics. I like the math. We need guys like that in our sport. They might be nerds or not. Who cares? But they're just people who like math and sports. Fantastic. It makes us all better for it. And on the last topic of Presti, I do think 2021 can be an amazing draft. Amazing. We'll see what happens, right? Sam might be trading Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and some of those 17 to get 3 top 10 picks. Boom. And then, because Jarod's right? Harden, Westbrook, Durant, all top 5 guys. And they didn't all come in one draft. So maybe Sam can do it over the course of 2, where he's getting 3 top 5 picks in over 2 drafts, or 4 of them over 2 drafts. And now we start seeing the Thunder again. That's absolutely can happen. And he'll have some guys, including Shai Gilgeous, that have that kind of talent. Someone's going to trade a top 5 pick for Shai Gilgeous next year if they want to do it. He's that good of a player.
Yeah. Bilal says Presti has something cooking for sure. I think there's also like, there's some story about like near the end of World War II, they're trying to create the H-bomb, right? Both sides.
Yeah.
I think one of the key ingredients was nickel, I want to say. And so I think this is a complicated story. I think Einstein notifies the president that Germany's buying nickel. And so the US should buy the nickel, right? And then later their only regret was they didn't buy all the nickel. Right? That would have been better. So that's how you win the war. So to me, like I think Presti's in a moment of like he's buying all the nickel,
as much nickel as he can possibly legally buy. Yeah.
Right. And the goal here is like A, maybe nickel's super valuable to us, but B, once I own all the nickel, I can do monopoly style pricing, right? And so it's going to get very hard. You can set your watches to it. Next year, the year after, there will be a very constricted market for first round picks, and you're going to have to go to the Sam Presti store. And you're going to
pay a lot of money for them.
Yeah.
Listen, he's the luckiest guy of all in this sense. I wouldn't want to live in Oklahoma City, but if I'm running a team, it's pretty cool that I have a fan base that when COVID is not an issue, they'll come anyway. Who has that? Like very few franchises have that kind of fan base. Even the Kings stopped coming. They're like, enough. Because they used to have a similar kind of fan base. It's like a college town. So they're going to come support him no matter what. I think he's doing a great job. Yeah. Now, how he drafts, we'll see. You still got to develop the players. Jarod's right. You got to develop the talent.
He gets to play the long game too, right, Henry? That's the other thing. Like this also allows you and builds you a certain level of job security, right? Well, we got to see how this plays out. I got all these picks. Now we got to do some stuff.
So I heard it was like the opposite. So
Really?
I heard that like most GMs like are going to end up in a meeting with the owner who's like, what have you like Sam Hinkie at the end in Philadelphia? They're like, what have you even done? Like, what is the point of all this crap? You're hurting my feelings. They're making fun of me when I walk in the stadium, right? But I heard that basically a bunch of GMs would love to do what Presti's doing, but they don't have the job security to last. So like Presti's playing a game where the payoff is in 5, 6, 7 years. And he was able to do that because he's like, they're never firing me. They love me. They're eating out of my hand. They'll let me do whatever I want. So now I'm doing the process, basically.
Right.
And it's a little, I understand, but like, look, to Amani's point, like the human part of me is not excited about this at all, right? Like I like to see, I love seeing on draft day, you see these incredibly hardworking young men hugging their moms and being like, all of this suffering is paying off, and now we're gonna go do this thing. I'm gonna buy you a house and I'm gonna fly. And like that is what the sport's most excitingly about, right? But there's this little spreadsheet component of it that I guess is like a little Stratomatic sidecar that I can also kind of get into.
Hey, on the subject of GMs, I left a voice message on WhatsApp for a young man that I'm mentoring that I think could be a great GM one day. And I said, I want you to start compiling everything you can on what Daryl has done in Philly. I don't know what it's going to be, but he's doing something. Yeah. And I give him credit for that. I think he understands some things about what they need around Simmons and Embiid that seemed pretty obvious, but it wasn't happening. He may be wrong, right? He's not worried about a lot of else besides shooting. It seems to me anyway, based on what he's doing so far. And I've not studied all that deeply, but I will, because with Simmons and Embiid, that might be all they needed.
Right. Was
just weapons everywhere as shooters. Simmons might be the best perimeter defensive player in the league. Embiid, I'm trying to make my Jarod voice. Might be the best paint defender in the league. Like, you don't need Josh Richardson. I mean, you got those two cats, right? Yeah. Now, we remember when Embiid got hurt 2 years ago, whenever he was out of the game, the Raptors smoked the Sixers, and that's why they got Horford, and that didn't work out. You still have to think about that. What are you going to do when Embiid sits, right? I promise you, he's thinking about that.
Oh, yeah.
He's thinking about that in different ways. There's ways.
Who would you sign if you were Daryl?
I mean, I have to see with their money situation, but he also might be thinking we'll just beat them up with offense. Like we're just not, that Sixers team couldn't survive. There's more than one way to do it. And so you've got to come up with another plan to outscore people, like maybe go small with Simmons at 5. He's not that small, and just play even faster. Right. And so maybe they get the cheese man and they just fly up and down. It's all about the cheese man. They fly
I didn't know this was the cheese man show. I didn't know that wasn't in the document. Like,
it may just be that because it's not easy to replace Joel Embiid for not a lot of money. Right. It didn't even work with Horford. So my point is Daryl will figure out a way. How do we play without Joel that'll work? And my guess, we'll see. It's an experiment, but it's not even that expensive an experiment. I think it's brilliant what he's doing.
I will say Daryl has shed $38 million roughly salary, which is incredible, like getting off of that Horford deal and Richardson. And the other thing is, look, talent is what matters in this league, right? If your goal is to win titles, you ain't doing it without talent. And I've said it a million times. You have to figure out a way when you have 2 all-NBA offense and defensive guys, 25 years old and younger, you got to figure out how to make that shit work. Like somehow, some way, it's got to work.
They still have Harris, don't they?
Yes. Tobias is still there.
I would tell him, don't buy, rent.
He's got the highest salary on the team.
Yeah. Otherwise, he'd be traded already.
It's a
and I like him. I like him just fine. I still think he's only 24. He's been around a long time. He came in the league at 18.
His name occurred to me when I saw Joe Lacob saying, like, give me options, right? If he just wants to use his wallet to bludgeon the league, I was like, well, Tobias Harris is actually, he's the 24-year-old who can play basketball, and his only sin is he just has a ridiculous contract.
I think he's like 28 now, but he's been in the league 17 years. He's played a long. I think his first year was Moses Malone's last year. He's been in the league a long damn time, man.
Yeah, that's pretty.
Started so young.
That's a long time. Okay, well, this will be exciting. 6:00 tonight, free agency. Who knows? It's going to be wild. Anything else you want to add in our final seconds?
Have a good weekend.
No, just please be safe, everyone, this weekend. The last weekend before the holiday. Let's be safe.
Absolutely. All right, I'll see you on Monday.